This is part 3 of the 50th episode special. Are you watching closely? Like I mentioned in the first episode, reflecting on the journey that we have taken so far is something I've not done historically. So just for that reason alone, doing this exercise now for no time has been illuminating. It's really made me process the growth that we have seen in terms of quality, whether it's audio, video, questions, the entire experience is giving me a lot of ideas of what I want to do in the episodes moving forward, and also retain some of that initial spark that we had in the first 50 episodes. So really excited to show you what the next phase is going to be like. But before that, this is part 3 of the reflection series, where once again I've shortlisted some really powerful segments from episodes 20 to 30, where the guest has shared a thought-provoking idea or shared a really personal story that I found quite powerful. So without much further ado, let's get into the list. In the first clip, I have Virgin Radio Dubai's Preeti Malik, who compares New York City with Dubai. And really, it's an analogy of this seasoned veteran against this upcoming prodigy. And I find it to be a great comparison from someone who's lived in both cities. In the second clip, Farzana takes us through an acting masterclass and explains how a lot of acting stems from the subconscious. Is not every movement needs to be planned. In the third clip, I have Adi Chan, who speculates on what music might look like in 50 years. In the fourth clip, I have astrophysicist Dr. Nidal Gassoum, who explores the idea whether God really created the universe. And I find this segment to be very interesting because he perfectly balances religion and astrophysics and gives an answer that I find very meaningful. In the fifth clip, I have rapper Moflo, who talks about how when he was growing up, he wasn't really encouraged to celebrate his Syrian heritage and instead was asked to look more towards Western influence, especially when it came to music. In the sixth clip, we have podcaster Ali Rafai, who explores the idea of whether people really deserve to be famous. Does anyone deserve to be famous? In the seventh clip, we have Kids Unplugged founder Anisa, who talks about the impact smartphones are having on kids. The eighth clip is from this episode that is really close to me. A lot of people keep asking me, which is your favorite episode? And let me put it on record. This is my favorite episode of all time because I got to interview someone I never thought I would interview. He is so elusive, hard to get a hand on, and I was finally able to do so. I interviewed this person called Shalaj, Lawania. I know, crazy as it sounds. And he finally shared the elusive answer to what really is the meaning of life. So if you ever wondered what is the meaning of life, this is the episode that will finally put those questions to rest. In the ninth clip, I have Dubai's popular RJ Meghna, who talks about how going through depression made her a much better actor. And finally, the last clip is from this very special episode that I did with my parents, where I interviewed them on the entire life story and the experience of parenting two animals. And this is a clip where we explore the idea whether India still feels like home for Gulf-based immigrants and expats. This is no time. If you like what you see, then do hit subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, or rate 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. This is more than just a passion project. I really believe in the vision of it. So if you'd like to see it continue, do consider making a donation on Patreon, Anchor, Instagram. Pick your poison. If not through monetary channels, then do consider leaving your likes and comments and sharing these episodes. Your engagement really goes a long way. For other forms of love and support, you can follow this channel on Instagram or Twitter, or follow me personally. And now it's no time. I read this quote about New York City which said that one instantly belongs to New York, but one only belongs to it as much as 5 minutes belong in 5 years. And it feels the same to me that no matter how much you know about the city, the history of it just swamps you. It's the quintessential metropolis. It's so much history, art, culture, food, or music that's either originated from New York or has been strongly influenced by it. And I had this feeling when I went to London, which was that every building, every bridge, every street has so much history or some story behind it. It's been through a lot. And in contrast, Dubai, you moved in 2008 and you've pretty much seen the city become what it's become. So when you moved in, I think right after that, the Burj Khalifa opened up, then the metro, then the marina, the JBR, downtown. All these areas have come up right in front of you. So how do you view this contrast? Do you feel like for Dubai, do you feel like a parent who's watching a kid grow right in front of their eyes? And for New York, have you ever felt that I know your parents moved in 1978 and you've grown up in the same block your entire life. Do you ever get this feeling in New York that no matter how much you know about it, there's still a lot more to know and you'll always be a speck on this continuum of the city?
So I think with the difference between Dubai and New York is, and they're two very different cities, and they have my respect in very different ways. With Dubai, as you said, I moved there in 2008. The Dubai that I moved to is not the same Dubai that we live in now. And that's not a bad thing. That just goes to, that's a tip towards the leaders who can adapt so quickly and move towards a future, you know? There's no comparing to the way Dubai has just bloomed. You can't, I don't think there's any city in the world that has done what Dubai has done in the 11 years that I've been there, in the 12 years, I can't count, 12 years, that 13 years now, actually, wow, that I've been there. No city changes like that. Like it's mind-blowing. You go away for 3 weeks, you come back, Sheikh Zayed Road has a canal under it. Like, it's crazy, you know? But in New York, although you feel like you're a speck in the grand scheme of things because there's so many people, the one thing about New York is it'll be the same. When I come back, you know, some of the storefronts might change, some of the, you know, gentrifying may happen. But for me, New York, I know that my building will always look the same. My street is always going to look the same. You know, that's never going to change. So I think that's the contrast I feel in Dubai. Like in Dubai, the road that you used to take to work may not even exist the way that you first envisioned it, you know? So it first wrote it. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's like my view on Dubai versus New York.
It does answer my question. And it also leads into my next question. So you mentioned about how fast time passes. You've said in the past that in Dubai, you blink and a building pops up and you don't even get the time to think how much time is passing in Dubai itself. It always feels like there's some magic or some sorcery in the air in Dubai itself that makes time just speed past every single day. So that begs the question, would you rather prefer having a great time, but then watching your 20s and your 30s just whiz past you and just look back an entire decade's past? Or would you prefer being in a place that it feels like, okay, time's, you know, taking its own time, pun not intended, but it's going at its own pace and you are getting to live every moment? What would you prefer?
No, I'm a fast-paced girl, man. Like I'm this. And I think that's because of where I grew up. This, you know, New York is a very, very fast-paced city. Although the structure may not change, everyone is go, 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 go. So when I first got to Dubai, Dubai was not go, 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 go. It was go, go, you know? And I wasn't very used to that. Now I feel like Dubai is very like, let's go. We need to do this. Let's go, you know? So I that's me personally. Maybe if you ask me 10, 15 years from now, my view may change. Who knows? But, you know, right now, I love having a fast-paced situation.
Daniel Day-Lewis said once about acting that the most fascinating work you can do is the one that you have no control over, because that's the part that frays your nerves because you don't know if life will reveal itself to you in that moment.
Absolutely.
Would you agree? Do you ever get this feeling that the best work you do on stage is the one that you have no control over, or it's often subconscious?
Oh, for sure. And I think with me, the plays that I don't rehearse, like say, for instance, Shmuel, or last year I did this play called A Sleepover from Hell. I did not know what I was actually going to do on stage. So I had no control over it in the sense that I like knowing what I'm going to do. I like knowing what to expect. But with this, like backstage, I was just standing there like, okay, I'm just going to go and I'm just going to do what I feel like. And then whatever happens, happens. And when it comes to that, I feel that's where I feel the most alive. And when that happens, when you're really aware of your surroundings and yourself and your body and your emotions, that's where you're really the most authentic. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So a lot of actors speak about this feeling, this hyper alert feeling that you get. But some also talk about getting completely lost in the role that they don't even remember what they did on stage. So when they step out, do you experience that as well?
Yeah. It really depends on the kind of character that you're doing. Now, say for instance, last year I did this Urdu play called Rafu, which was an original script written by Durdana Farid. And in that, I was not really playing a character of a person. I was kind of playing, I would say, a metaphor or a concept. A concept of innocence or purity and abandonment and pain and suffering and the longing for something, but she does not really know what she's looking for. So when it came to characters like that, I genuinely did not know what happened on stage. Like I remember right before going onto stage, I was just in the zone because the play begins with her committing suicide. So that was the zone that I was in. And after that, I just do not remember anything. I remember walking in, there was red light on me, and then that's it. And there have also been plays where I know what's happening on stage, but in the middle of the moment, I zone out and whatever happens, happens. And then I go backstage and I literally pass out. Like I faint. And there was this one specific play that I did in Manipal where that happened, and I had to actually wait backstage till all of my co-stars came back because the play was just a full length and it just went on. And I was the only person backstage that finished with my scenes midway. So, yeah.
Why do you pass out?
I don't know. I think I was really overwhelmed. That character was about a very deranged, strange, mad, crazy woman who had to choose one child over the other, and then she commits suicide. What is this? What is this theme of suicide? Yeah, she commits suicide, and yeah, so that was my last scene. I was just in that zone. I don't know why that happens. I think it just like overwhelms me, and it's.
This reminds me of something Tom Hanks once said, that a lot of people come up to me and ask, how do you do it? And this is Tom Hanks speaking, not me, obviously. And he said, I don't know, because one, I actually don't know. And two, if I sat down to think about it, then I wouldn't be able to do it ever again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Very similar. Okay, so there's a follow-up question in this, and I really apologize for going so abstract so early. It's only been 2 minutes, 3 minutes, so this is a new record. But I get this feeling that when you play your roles on stage, do you think there's more to it than just playing a DMV clerk, a struggling actor, an art therapist? Do you think what you're doing on stage is, this is something I've heard from actors in interviews where they talk about this certain kind of a force or this energy, this trance state, everyone uses different words, that takes control of them, and then they basically lose all memory of what they're doing on stage. And in a way, it flows through them and it becomes something that's bigger than what they are. Does this make sense to you, or is this getting too abstract?
Very true. No, not abstract at all. The stage is my temple. I've always believed that. And it's like the faith that I have in the stage is like nothing else. I know that once I put my step forward onto that, it will always forever hold me. And whenever I will need help, it will help me. And that's where I feel like the energy kind of flows. Like sometimes you remember going on stage, but after that, whatever happens just happens. And it's not, sometimes I feel it isn't me. It is someone else. Like when I did Shmool. So Shmool is about a clown that goes on to put a performance about, an old man and a clock and the conversation that they have with each other, and how the clock tries to convince the old man how he actually has unlimited time, and with that time that you really need to make that one dress that you've always wanted to make. And with that play, I took help from my grandfather, who's not with me anymore, but I knew that he was there. I knew that he would have loved it for sure. So that kind of motivated me to kind of just go through with it. Even the end of the play, rather, when the clown comes back and, unmasks herself, the whole performance is done with. She comes back, she looks into the mirror, she's vulnerable, and she's just trying to like take or peel layers off of her and to show herself who she really is, and to try to relive those moments of her mom's last voice message that she got before her mom passed away. And I mean, that is kind of her trying to give herself the unlimited time that she would have loved. So in that moment, I thought of my grandmom, who I've never met in life. I've only heard of her from my granddad and my mother. So that's where I felt her presence as well. So I think for sure, like this energy definitely exists if you're willing to welcome it with both arms.
So it's time for a thought experiment, a HOTS question, which is inspired by everything you've mentioned so far. So the year is 2070 or 2120. And if I just ask you to paint a picture of what music will look like, the entire industry will look like in 50 or 100 years, what does it look like to you? What will remain? What won't? What will be popular? Will you have the same kind of jamming sessions? What instruments remain? Would we have concerts? Would we have performers? Everything we've touched upon. Just give me let's say I'm 70 years old and I'm going to go for my first concert now. What is it looking like for me?
I think there is a personalized concert for each person at that point in time, right? Because I feel like the concept of genre is already fading away slightly, and with time it's going to fade away even more, right? And I'm seeing this out of the data points that we have today, wherein couple of years ago, genres were defined by the kind of instruments you were playing. If you were playing electric guitars and drums, you would call it rock. If you were playing, let's say, a banjo, it might count as country. So it was very defined that these are the things that constitute these genres. But today, because I can literally create sound out of anything, right? I can literally take a sine wave and modify it to give the sounds that I want. The whole idea of a genre is sort of mixing in, each genre mixes into the other, and there are millions of genres out there. Right? After a point, you're going to stop keeping track. Right? At that point, each person is going to have their individual style of music that they listen to.
That's their genre.
Yeah, it's going to be your genre, right? So maybe you go to a concert, you plug in, right? The only thing that's set is probably the feel of the music and the tempo of the music. But you're listening to a different song than the person next to you. But we are both feeling the same thing. Because the beat is the same and the feel is the same, right? It's a happy song at 120 beats per minute. So your dancing is matching. Your feel is matching. Probably the songs are completely different.
Fascinating. I actually had a question based on this, which was, should I bring it now? No, we'll bring it later. I think it fits in later. But that's something very interesting. So do you define genres by the instruments that are used while creating the music? So when I talk about rock, are you only defining by people who've used the electric guitar and the drums and the headbanging? Or can you define music without those instruments? Can there be rock without, let's say, electric guitar or drums?
I mean, I've stopped defining genres lately because it's a very, I think it's a very difficult exercise to do, right? Genres exist because you want to tag music to a certain bucket online. Like, let's say you're putting it on YouTube. If I'm looking for rock music, people should be able to find my song. That's the reason you put genres to it. I personally try not to limit myself to a certain genre. So when I make music, I bring in my Carnatic influences. I try and bring in all of the different things that I listen to. I try to bring in some Arabic influences as well. So that's how I look at genre, right? As a way to tag something rather than a way to say this is the music I make.
It's a very interesting picture you painted of a personalized genre and a personalized concert experience in the future. You are currently a member of Beyond Borders, which is this band in a long distance relationship. Do you think moving forward that will become more common? Would it not be necessary to have people physically present together? And maybe it might be even more advantages if you're actually doing it virtually because of all the advantages and technology that you have.
I think if you're talking about a band, then there is the whole aspect of being buddies, jamming together and all of that, which might still have merit going forward, right? Because there's a social experience to it, right? Wherein you just come together, you jam for a while, you come up with songs, right? But if you think about professionally producing music or becoming a professional musician, I don't think the whole concept of having a band and a set, like these are the 4 people that I'm going to make music with, is going to be something which is very important going forward, right? Because I can find people to make music with online, and I don't really have to say that physical presence is necessary. So in the professional circles, yes, I see that it's going to become a lot more decentralized, as I put it earlier.
Really? So there will be no need to have bands in the future. It'll just become very individual centric because one person will be capable of doing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. So we are seeing probably in the last few decades of bands.
No, not really.
Not really?
Not really. See, because how do you teach music to someone who's starting out, right? Even today, you teach them to play the guitar, you teach them to play a certain instrument, right? And once you start learning to play a certain instrument, the progression of you becoming better at that is that, okay, I'm going to get together with people and start making music with them, right? That's where bands come in. And then you're going to go and perform at the stage and all of those things, right? So those things are going to continue to exist. There might be a case wherein kids start learning to just produce music from their laptops. Then that's a whole different conversation wherein it's a completely decentralized world. But we as humans, we want to perform, right? We want to be on stage. We want that spotlight on us. So that is going to happen only when there's a band construct to it.
I believe the Arabic word for the universe is kon, which roughly translated means to exist or to be. So my first question is, where do you stand on this long debate, this boxing match? This has gone on for centuries, where in the red corner we have the universe is infinite. It has always been on an infinite continuum. There's a cyclic universe theory which says that the universe has cycles of a big bang, then a big crunch, then a big bang again, and it just goes on and on and on till infinity. And then in the blue corner, we have arguments like the Kalam cosmological argument, which states that there is a point of creation. There has to be a point before this infinity, or even the design argument, which says that the universe is too beautiful, too symmetrical, too perfect, too regular to have just been come out by chance. There has to be a creator behind this or a designer behind this. And this argument then goes into there being a creator and a god, and also occasionalism. So where do you stand on this long argument? Do you have a particular intuition on whether the universe is infinite or has it been created, whether the Big Bang was the point of creation?
Yeah, well, those are big questions, among the biggest questions that there are out there, right? But those are slightly separate questions, even though obviously they relate to the universe and creator or creation and so on. But those are slightly different questions. Let me unpack them a little bit. So as you said, the first question that has been debated for centuries was, has the universe existed for an infinite time, goes back to minus infinity, or did it start at the t equals 0 and there was nothing before that? And the reason why there were all these questions or debates and disagreements, the blue corner versus the red corner, as you said, is because people didn't have data, and so to them this was a philosophical question. But then in the early 1920s, when we discovered that the universe is expanding, and then we sort of retraced the history of the universe backward, and we realized it must have started from a point, because how could it be expanding like this? In fact, you can measure the rate of expansion, and you say, therefore, 1 billion years ago it was a little smaller, 5 billion years ago it was much smaller, since it is expanding at this whatever rate, and so on. And then you go back and you find that it starts from a point, and that's the Big Bang idea. You know, you start from a point, you expand, you dilute, temperature drops, you start making more elements, particles and atoms and molecules and so on. And so people said, oh, clearly the data is saying that if we go back, we find that the universe started at some point. And that was sort of the end of the debate of, is it eternal, going back to minus infinity, or did it go back to t equals 0? Then people, as you know, these questions never die completely. People came back and said, wait a minute, but this is our universe, and this is our bubble of the universe, if you like, but maybe beyond it, and maybe there is, this sort of this big room, this big meta-universe, and then there are some explosions, local explosions. So what we are seeing is, in here, there is this Big Bang, but maybe there are other Big Bangs, and maybe there is a much better space and time where this universe exploded for whatever reason, or appeared, and then there was another one. So maybe in the end, there is this infinite universe, and what we are looking at, and what started 13.8 billion years ago, is our universe, not the entire universe. But we don't have any data on this. So this idea that the universe could still be infinite, and we are only expanding in our bubble, this still is logical and there's nothing wrong with it, but there is no data that confirms this. We don't know if this is really what we have. Do we have only one universe, one bubble, and there is nothingness over there? Of course, it's very hard to imagine nothingness. What do you mean nothingness? Not even space, not even time, nothing out there, just our universe from t equals 0 expanding. Or no, this is our universe which emerged for some reason, and maybe there are other bubbles in a foam like this, and the universe is actually infinite, and what we are looking at is only our local universe. So this we don't know. This is why people talk now about a multiverse, that there is this infinite inflation, and there are different bubbles that appear here and there from time to time, and we don't have data for this. We don't have material evidence for it, but there is some nice physics behind it that sort of makes sense. And then now the debate is, just because the physics is nice doesn't make it true. There's all kinds of nice science that doesn't really exist out there. Just because the equations, you can put together some equations and they tell you can have bubbles, doesn't mean that there are really bubbles. So the answer is we don't know. And I tell people, the job of the scientist is not to impose my viewpoint. It's not, oh, I prefer, an infinite universe, so I believe in an infinite universe. Or, no, I don't like this infinite universe, so I'll go with this just one unique bubble. That's our universe, finished. I tell people I am okay either way. We just leave it and see how science develops. Maybe by the end of this century or next century, we will have some interesting evidence that will tell us that there is a multiverse, that there are other universes, or not, or no, whatever was pointing to other universes has now been found to be incorrect because it had some indirect predictions that have been checked and found to be incorrect. So we don't know. So on this infinite universe, non-infinite universe, I am sort of open-minded. I don't know, and it doesn't matter to me either way. By the way, both ways, and through the centuries with the debates of all the philosophers, from Plato and Aristotle all the way to Averroes, Ibn Rushd, my favorite Muslim philosopher, and beyond, there were people who believed in one or the other while still believing that there is a God behind it. So the fact that the universe could be infinite and we have a bubble, or the universe is just unique, there is nothing else out there, either way you can argue for a God. So it's not like, oh, if you believe this, then you are with God. If you don't believe this, if you believe this, then you have dropped the creator idea. Either way can be argued, as we know from the history, and there were very, very hard debates on this. Now on the design argument also has evolved interestingly. What is the design argument, first of all? People for centuries and centuries looked at the marvels of nature around us. They look at the eye, they look at animals, they look at insects, and they look at our organs, they look at flowers, they look at some amazing animals that look like a flower, but they are animals, and vice versa. And they say, how could this have happened just by itself like this? This is just no way. Somebody must have designed it. It's just like if I show you, a piece of really well-made machinery, some sophisticated engine or motor or camera or something, and I say, it just made itself like that, it just evolved like that. And people said, there's no way anything so complex and sophisticated must have been designed by a creator. Then, of course, as you know, came Darwin, and Darwin showed that there is a process by which you can show that the simplest forms can evolve step by step over long periods of time and give you a diversity, a tree of life of all kinds of complex organisms, animals, trees, plants, humans, whatever, and all of that can start with a very simple form. So just because you have complexity, it doesn't mean they were designed that way. So there was a process of evolution and it produced all of this. Then the debate changed into, yes, but these laws of the universe, the processes, the physical, chemical, biological processes that have produced all this complex and wonderful diversity of life, where did this come from? How come quantum mechanics and electromagnetism and the chemical reactions and all of this are so well adjusted together that they really produce all of this? Then, of course, we had the fine-tuning argument, we had the anthropic argument, anthropic principle, and people said, you see, the universe could have only produced complex objects, even a star and a planet, which in itself is a complex thing, because if you look at a star like the sun, I mean, it's a nuclear engine in the core.
Reactor,
the core is a nuclear reactor. and it produces this energy, and there is, this radiative process and convective process, and there's magnetic fields, and it rotates and it produces energy, and it is so finely balanced because there must be equilibrium between the energy you produced from within and the gravity that is trying to, crush it down, and then the earth, and it has, the core and the mantle and the magma and the tectonic plates, and it is, even leaving aside all of life, you look at just the star and the planet, and it is complex. And in fact, people have come out and realized that if electromagnetism and gravity did not have these specific forms and values, you would not even have stars, let alone planets, let alone, atmosphere, and then carbon dioxide, which gets absorbed, and you produce oxygen, and then animals can breathe the oxygen, and all of that. Even those basic building blocks like stars and planets would not exist. So there is a fine-tuning, a balance in the universe, and people said, that's the design. You see, the design now is no longer talked about as, look at my eye, because I can explain to you how your eye became so complex over, millions of years. But I cannot explain to you why chemistry and gravity are so finely balanced. So people say, the design is over there. Maybe in the future we'll find some explanation for this, and then I will say, okay, that's not design anymore. We can explain it just like Darwin was able to explain the complexity of life, and then people don't talk about, organs and animals as evidence for a creator. But now people talk about the complexity and balance of the universe, but maybe tomorrow we'll be able to explain that. So that's the design argument, and these are, as you can see, fascinating debates because they call on science. We need to understand a lot about science, but there's a lot of philosophy behind it, and there's a lot of historical debates that people can read and find fascinating, and people shouted at each other and insulted each other over these arguments. So it's a lot of fun.
You were born in Damascus, Syria, and raised in Saudi. What is your current connection with both Syria and Palestine? Because obviously you were raised in Saudi, you moved when you were quite young, but your parents still might have a very strong cultural connection with them. So how do you view these countries? Are they still of some form of cultural root in your life? Or do you have a sense of detachment because you've never stayed there, never really resonated with them?
There's a sense of detachment, obviously, because I just don't live it and don't really know it too much. I've been there a few times to Syria. I've never been to Palestine, and I can't obviously go. But it's a weird thing, and for a long time we were programmed to believe being more westernized is all the positive things, and being more Arab is all the negative things, and it's just it was a mistake on our part, where our parents and our elder generation, especially people who, most of us were financially struggling, and your parents don't really have time to really instill that too much pride into you. It's a lot of let's get out there and make something out of our lives, So we didn't really have that cultural reinforcement, I would call it. So I missed out a lot on that. I did not appreciate my culture a lot growing up, but I feel a huge sense of connection to my culture. And growing up, I started learning so much about our music, our poetry, our art, our heritage, our architecture, our medicine, our books, all these things that is unbelievable to me, because again, we weren't taught these things in the books. We were taught about Christopher Columbus, but what about, Al-Khwarizmi? So it was a sad moment figuring out all these things, learning about whether it's Muslim history or any other religion in our region, whether it's Asia or Middle East. So growing up now, I'm starting to connect a lot more, but it's sad because I just feel like even the culture itself has just been translated into food, and just very superficial things nowadays. So it's a renaissance of artists that are bringing that back, that's starting to ignite my interest in it. Before, it was all older generations speaking to us about our culture, and nowadays I just see a lot of people that I can relate to, 28, 30, whatever years old, talking to us in our new younger language about our heritage and culture. So it's getting to a point where I think people of my generation are understanding where they came from, and we're establishing more and more roots. So for me, even I'm starting to include my culture more in my music. So looking into my next piece of music, I'm definitely gonna have Arab samples. They can sue me, they can do whatever they have to do, and we'll talk about it then. But I need to put some of my Arab culture into my music. In terms of Saudi Arabia, Saudi was, I think, more of an influence to me growing up than any other place. It was, I mean, I know Dubai is a melting pot, but Saudi is, I think, more so even because I don't know. I feel like there's a wider variety of not just cultures but classes that you get to come across. You know, you get to see everything from the dirt all the way to very comfortable or very legacy driven families. You get to meet everybody. So Saudi put a print on who I am, and I love it, man. I just feel like it gave me the space where it was such a calm place to live in to focus on things that I loved, i.e. basketball or music, So Saudi would be a huge stepping stone for me coming out of, the Middle East, basically.
A lot of interesting things to explore there.
Yeah.
When you were talking about Syria, I just remembered Shivani, who I had on the show. She's from Iraq,
Mm-hmm.
and she had mentioned this very powerful line when she said that Iraq is the home that I miss, but I don't know what I miss. And I could also resonate with her because I've also grown up in the Middle East, but I'm originally from India, but I've never stayed there. And I have this certain disconnect with the culture. Obviously, I have the benefit of being able to go back whenever I can. Both you and Shivani don't even have that option. So I can resonate to an extent, but it's a very powerful statement. It's a kind of feeling that's not spoken about much these days, but now with the new generation, they are speaking out about it because we are children of immigrants.
It's a very deep statement. Like even that itself is like you not even being able to know your own culture, where you come from, like having that one tree that you said, like, that's where my parents used to rest up after they get, you know what I mean? We don't have that. So yeah, it's a sad and like melancholy statement to make, even, a home you miss that you don't even know. Yeah.
Let's dive into fame even further. So I've got a verse from a poem here. This is the poem called I'm Nobody, Who Are You by Emily Dickinson. So the poem goes something like this. I'm just taking a small verse. I'm nobody, who are you? Are you nobody too? How deary to be somebody. How public like a frog. To tell your name the livelong day to an admiring bog. So let's explore fame as you do on your podcast as well. Do you think people deserve to be famous? Is the idea of fame important in today's world?
I don't know if deserve is the right word. I mean, everybody deserves to be heard. I think that's the better way to put it. Fame, it's one of those things where, and I'm not saying that I don't think about this, and obviously I do think about it, but fame is one of those things where you really, really want it. Like it's something that you desire. People want that attention. I'm talking about generally. I'm not saying like, everybody is like this. I'm saying in a general sense of a term, when you think about fame, people think about these certain things, like you want to be famous, you want to be around those lights, you want to be around all of this, maybe, at the beginning, you think paparazzi and all these, the attention that you're getting and a rising star and all the money that you're going to make and stuff like that, which is great. I mean, that's what fame is. But to say that everybody deserves it, there's things that people kind of like miss. Like you lose certain things also when you become famous. You lose one of the things that are taken most for granted, which is anonymity. And it's something that is taken so much for granted that you lose the fact that you could walk or down the street or go to a restaurant and just do that, right? Maybe one day, we're human in the end, so everybody has their limits. So you lose the fact that you could go and do that. I'm not saying that celebrities don't do that. They do that, but obviously they have that, there is something around them that wherever you go, somebody might know who they are. So they have to dress up differently. They have to act differently. And some celebrities don't like the fact that you go up to them and ask them for an autograph or you disturb them during their day. And if you ask like a non-famous person that thing, if, by the way, if, you go to the coffee shop and every second 100 people are bothering you, they tell you, no, I don't want that, right? So So
Sorry, that's interesting. Can you just explore that? So what you're saying is, even if no one recognizes you, just the thought that someone might recognize me, and just the thought that I have to dress up for that reason can be quite a burden, right?
it can be. I mean, if you just think about like what maybe Leonardo DiCaprio has to go through, right? Like to go out, or Jonah Hill, or anybody, Sylvester Stallone, whatever the concept is, right? This is not like to discount them, but I think we should be more aware of their like status and the human side of who they are, because they're human as well. They have things that they need to do. In episode 14, I had one of my great guests, Jason, and he said we all bleed the same, right? So it's the same thing. Yeah. So in a way, you have to kind of appreciate or understand that they are also, they're also like us. They have things that they need to do. There's stuff that I know they don't, fly the same way, or they drive the same way, and all these things. Like, this is all very different. But I think celebrities, in a way, kind of want us to have that feeling that we're also like you guys. There's things that we need to do, and social media has made that like even more accessible for you to see their lives and see how they are. But it must be tough living under that, the spotlight all the time. It's crazy to be living like that all the time. So that's why they need a break. They need, people wonder, oh, this person disappeared. Oh, this person disappeared. I mean, it's
normal. I specifically use the word deserve because do you think there's a benefit in giving attention, giving fame to people who are actually good at what they do? Can there be inspiration?
Of course. I mean, that's where it should be. It should be placed in the right place. So yes, some people deserve to be more famous. Some people deserve to be, but you see, the word famous, it can be interpreted, it can be interpreted as good or bad, right? So that's why the word, the fame or being famous maybe is not the, you can take it in another direction. You can say, rather than fame, this person deserves to be heard more, or this person deserves to be, have more recognition. That's the right word, because fame can go either way. It can go in a very bad way, and there's a lot of examples where people have been into fame like so quickly, and it's really been detrimental to them to the point of death, right? And we will never know the actual story of people that have the pressures that they are under, because you cannot feel like that those emotions, right? You can't feel the emotions that a celebrity might go through. And it's part of the price you have to pay. So like I said, anonymity is one of them. You also pay for, the kind of pressures that you're going to be under. But of course, like, in the flip side, there's the money, there's the attention, there's the privilege, the access, all of these things, right? So it really comes down to, we can't, me and you can't decide for somebody. You have to be very well aware of what you're going through. And if you have a goal, like, for example, Dua Lipa, I really respect like her as an artist, because I feel she has, like, for example, she has a goal, and she's very talented and she's working on it. And you have to have a strong team with you as well, who support her vision and all that. But, I'm sure that at a lot of times in her day, she wants to be, she wants to be alone. She wants to, live a normal life. She, that's the thing. So you can apply that with any person. But does she deserve to be praised for her talent? Yes, because she's bringing a very different, like, kind of like very different concept, and she's empowering, for example, somebody who wants to be in that same position. She's inspiring somebody to sing. She's inspiring somebody to chase their dreams, and that's great. That's why it's very specific with like who you're, role models can be dangerous, man. Be very, very careful.
You grew up amongst uncles who were big fans of Malcolm X.
They love Malcolm X, yes.
Yeah.
But one in particular.
Shout out to the one in particular. So Malcolm X once said that education is the passport towards the future, because tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. And you've done exactly that. You are using education as a tool towards helping the new generation who will obviously spearhead the future. I believe you were in Vietnam when you were watching a group of kids play football with this makeshift football. And that's when you first got the idea behind Kids Unplugged. And the main theme behind this is to ensure that kids have a healthy relationship with technology, because there's a massive influx all around them and it's kind of stealing their childhood away from them. And you created kids unplugged at that point, which is not even a category in the licensing in UAE. You created edutainment, so thank you for that. So the first question that arises from this is, where do you think we're heading with our relationship with technology? Do you think it's inevitable that technology will be a continuous part of our life? Or another way of thinking is it possible that in 2050 there will be a child out there who can have a childhood without any connection to technology and not be left behind?
I mean, that's a very deep-rooted question, because there's so many scenarios that plays into that. And I think with the growth of Kids Unplugged and the Unplugged Initiative and everything that I do, it's become more evident that technology is a major part of everyone's life. And it's only going to get more and more major with all the time that we have. What I implement and what I really, really, really focus on is the importance of digital well-being, right? So like you and I, we were just, before we started shooting, we were talking about like, you know, where we were born and raised and everything like that. But if we talk about our childhood, a lot of what you're going to tell me is play, you're outside, connecting with people, memories that even just thinking about it to make you smile a little bit. Even the less fortunate will always talk about like their childhood as being something that brought them joy. And I feel like with technology and with devices, what they've brought is this ultimate disconnect for young kids, right? That their joy is deep rooted in the connection of something. So for example, a 2-year-old will not eat properly now because he can't eat without watching Paw Patrol or some type of TV show that he loves. Whereas a lot of our eating time was where we would learn about our different cultural foods, the different spices and different things. And then it would be the perfect time to sit as a family and eat. And that 2-year-old would spend time connecting with their family members and talking, right? Even if they didn't really say a lot of words, it'd be celebrated, it'd be connected. So not only does it take things away, it's really affecting the child's development. And that's where I come in. And I'm always kind of talking about, okay, how much of what they're doing is going to hinder their development for their next stages, right? So like when they're 4, when they're 10, how much of what's happening right now is going to affect them later on, because you don't necessarily see it now, right? With a lot of side effects, you don't see them immediately. I think the biggest side effect of technology is the disconnect that it brings to young kids. The social aspect of it, kids don't socialize with other kids anymore. They used to. They don't play outside as much anymore. They used to. So all of these things are because all these devices have now come in place of that. And that's where my biggest concern comes from in terms of like their childhood is being stolen. Like they are not having the childhood that they deserve to have, because all of that is free. All of what I'm talking about is free. The devices are the ones that cost a lot of money to get, to download, to do all of these things. But it is free for a child to kick a ball around outside or run around outside or connect with the neighbors and have that confidence building and social interactions that they deserve to have. And then the other thing you were talking about is, you know, can children have a childhood with no technology? I don't think that we're at a stage right now where we can completely take away all technology. And I don't think we should either, because I always say, when you take something away from a child and you say, no, you can't have this one, you teach them 2 things, either to become a stealer or a beggar, right? Because everybody now has it. So they're either going to go steal a device from someone or they're going to go beg someone for something. So you don't want to instill the bad side effects of taking things away from your children. So I always say that they should have access to technology, but it should be age and stage, their age range, I can't talk today. It should be for their age and stage of development. A 1-year-old or any child under 1 year old shouldn't have any screen time, but 1 to 2 should have 15 minutes a day. 2 to 3 should have 30 minutes a day. And then 3 to 4 should have an hour supervised a day. So all these things, there's a time limit to what they're supposed to be watching. And then when they are watching it, what's the content that they're watching? How is that benefiting their development? Are they watching something educational? Are they watching something with good use of language? Are they learning? Because they're at this age, especially when they're under 8 years old, where we call the programming years, where they're taking everything in, they're learning all these different behaviors, learning all these different things. And so when people play, let's say, for example, you've played a 3-year-old a new rap music video, and then you laugh and joke around when that child is now imitating what they've seen in that video. It's not funny. It's sad because at the end of the day, what they're going to go do is imitate that to be something that was okay. Whereas if I watch the rap video at my 30 years of age and I imitate it, I know how to, utilize what I've learned. I'm not going to go to an office meeting and start sharing what I watched in a Cardi B music video, But kids don't know that. So all these mannerisms, these behaviors, these attitudes, all these things come from what they're watching and what they're seeing and what they're allowed to see. So it should definitely be something that I feel like parents should censor and should really take time into seeing. And I don't know if you've heard about that whole situation where they had that what was it called? It was like this digital monster thing that would come in halfway through a YouTube video. I can't remember her name. It was like it was an animation. It was a white face with two eyes and a like scary mouth, whatever. And she'd come in to these videos that kids were watching and be like, okay, kids, in like such a child's voice. All right, kids, now I'm going to want you to stand up and go find an electricity plug and put your fingers and like do these things that would tell kids. No, I'm dead serious. I'm going to find Momo. I think it was called Momo.
Was this a hack or?
It was and
okay.
It was on YouTube. It was on all these things. It was such a big controversy. It was 2019 that this had come out. And parents were freaking out because obviously these long videos that their kids are watching, if it's a 20-minute video, this video comes in or this person speaking comes in like 10 minutes, the adults are not likely to be in the room. Yeah, the first 5 minutes, the adults might be around, but afterwards they'll go and do what they're doing because their child is quiet right now. So you had all of these things that were happening. Mobile was just an example, but how many other things happen where they, kids can be accessed, or people can access kids watching all these different things, and then the content, if we don't listen to what's being said, kids are picking up all these different things. So digital well-being is incredibly important, and parents need to be really, really, really wary of what their kids are watching and how it's affecting them, not just now, but in the long run.
So that leads into my next question. Can we wrap up in 10 minutes? Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah. This is my last question anyway. So my last question for you, Shalaj, is what is the meaning of life? Wow, that's a deep question. Thankfully, I've actually thought about this for a long time and I've got the perfect answer for you. I think the meaning of life is taking you back to that boy whose life you saved. Metaphorically, when you were at the edge, what pulled you back? What was your RJ Meghna that helped you cope with this world?
I think, honestly, for me, it was therapy. It was therapy. By the time I had come to that edge and by the time I was at my lowest in at the depression, I had isolated myself. I had purposely withdrawn from people. It also had something to do with an awful, toxic relationship that I was in at that point in time. So that didn't help. And that person that I was in the relationship with did not help me cope any better. He made me worse, actually. Which is when I realized, okay, I'm alone in this. I've got nobody. I need to go see a therapist. So my therapist was my RJ. Like he was the anchor where it was just, he weighed me down in a good way. And then I could just like flap about and do whatever I wanted. But I knew something was holding me down. So I think therapy, for sure, just conventional therapy.
Do you think you have emerged stronger at all the broken places now?
100%. I think Rumi also said, right? The wound is the place where the light enters you. And I think that it's phenomenal. And it's so true. I don't think I would be the person that I am if I didn't have the broken places that I do.
Yeah, you've mentioned in the past that you think you've become a better actor because
100%.
When did you start seeing the change? How did it help you become a better actor?
I think it's life experiences. You get to, as an actor, when you're given a character to build, you have so many more life experiences to tap into. So especially if I'm doing a dramatic piece or a dramatic play, I mean, when the director says, go to your dark place. Only one director has ever told me that. He was a really bad director. But when the director asks you to kind of tap into, if you're
if you're a real or a method actor, whatever it's called, if you're the kind of actor who taps into something that's happened to you, I have so much material to tap into. So that makes me a better actor. I've also always used theater as therapy, as escape. So when I walk into rehearsal, everything that's happened outside of rehearsal switches off. I think that makes me a better actor as well, because I need to switch it off. All my anxiety has to stay out of these doors because there is no place for it here. So because theatre has become, or has been, a safe haven, I think that made me a better actor as well, because I focus so much more. There's so much more concentration in the moment. So yeah, because of those reasons.
This ties into the very common saying in our theatre, which says that great work or great art comes from great suffering.
Yeah.
So you clearly an agreement.
I do agree. I really, really do. Not saying, not taking away from people who are fabulous actors who have not had a difficult childhood or have not had a divorce or whatever. That doesn't not make them good actors. It's not like I have an edge over any other actor. No. I just, in the capacity or the resources that I have, it helps. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be something negative, because let's say to understand true happiness, you need to have experience in your life to give it that depth, right?
Exactly.
You have been married now for 32 years this year. उसमें से 30 साल तुमने इंडिया के बाहर बिताए हैं, ऑलमोस्ट, राइट? अगले उस सवाल से पहले एक और कविता है इधर. तो कविता कुछ ऐसे है: ना इधर के रहे ना उधर के रहे, बीच में लटकते रहे, ना इंडिया को भुला सके ना विदेश को अपना सके, NRI बन के काम चलाते रहे, ना हिंदी को छोड़ सके ना अंग्रेजी को पकड़ सके, देसी एक्सेंट में गोरों को कंफ्यूज करते रहे, ना शॉर्ट्स पहन सके ना सलवार कमीज छोड़ सके, जीन्स पर कुर्ता पहनकर इतराते रहे, ना नाश्ते में डोनट खा सके ना खिचड़ी और कड़ी को भुला सके, पिज़्ज़ा पर मिर्च छिड़क कर मज़ा लेते रहे, ना गर्मी को भुला सके ना स्नो को अपना सके, खिड़की से सूरज को ब्यूटीफुल डे कहते रहे. अब आई बारी इंडिया जाने की, तो हाथ में मिनरल पानी की बोतल लेकर चलते रहे, लेकिन वहाँ पर ना भेलपूरी खा सके ना लस्सी पी सके, पेट के दर्द से तड़पते रहे, ना मच्छर को भगा सके ना खुजली को रोक सके, क्रीम से दर्दों को छुपाते रहे, ना इधर के रहे ना उधर के रहे, कम वक्त कहीं के नहीं रहे. तो सवाल ये आता है, क्या आज इंडिया तुम्हारे लिए घर है, या क्या गल्फ तुम्हारे लिए घर है, या कभी कभी लगता है कि ना इधर के रहे ना उधर के रहे, कहीं के नहीं रहे?
नहीं, इसको मैं तो ये बोलूँगा, अब तो हमारे लिए दोनों ही घर हैं, क्योंकि वो हमारा बर्थ प्लेस है, इनिशियल लाइफ वहाँ बिताई है, लेकिन जितना टाइम हमने इंडिया में लगाया उतने ही साल हमने गल्फ में भी बिताए हैं. एंड गोल्डन पीरियड का हो, जो ग्रोइंग पीरियड है, अचीवमेंट वाला पीरियड है, वो सब गल्फ में हुआ. तो ये भी हमारा घर है, वो भी हमारा घर है. थोड़ा सा मैं ये बोलूँगा, जो कविता में इश्यूज रेस किए हैं तुमने, उसमें ये है कि गल्फ हमको ये लगा कि हम फिर भी मोर इंडियन रह सके. अगर यूरोप या वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड में जाते तो शायद इंडिया से काफ़ी दूर हो जाते. और मे बी ये भी एक कारण था, ये अकेला कारण नहीं था, डेस्टिनी थी कि हम यही कंटिन्यू करते रहे. सो वी डोंट मिस मच ऑफ इंडिया, क्योंकि गल्फ में बहुत कुछ इंडिया का अवेलेबल होता है.
तुम्हारा आंसर?
हाँ, मुझे भी नहीं ऐसा कि लगता है कि इधर के भी नहीं रहे और उधर के भी नहीं रहे, ऐसा मुझे फील नहीं होता है. और मैं इंडिया को इतना मिस नहीं करती हूँ, मुझे यहाँ ज़्यादा अच्छा लगता है.
क्यों?
यहाँ की लाइफ ज़्यादा अच्छी है, ज़्यादा पीसफुल है, और मुझे पीस बहुत पसंद है.
क्या तुम्हें लगता है कि वापस इंडिया जाओगे?
जा भी सकते हैं, अगर गए तो हम, ऐसा नहीं है, जाके वहाँ भी सेट हो सकते हैं.
नॉट आउट ऑफ फोर्स, मतलब अपने, अगर तुम्हारे हाथ में ऑप्शन है.
अगर हमारे हाथ में है, जब तक हमारा मन है, हम यहीं रहना पसंद करेंगे.
योर आंसर. एंड यू?
जहाँ मॉम रहेगी वहाँ मैं रहूँगा.